Who is ready to do some book reviews with me? This is a booktube channel. I figured I should actually do some reviews of the books that I read in January. First one I'm going to start with is The Witch Collector by Charissa Weaks. Very excited to do an actual book review with you guys. Basically kind of give you an overall idea of what it's about, what I thought about the characters and the plot, and just kind of some opinions. I will say my reviews will be more of that. I am not a literary critic or anything like that. These are just my opinions and reasons why I think you would or wouldn't like a book, just so you can know if it's maybe for you or not, if it's something that you'd actually really enjoy reading. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that I wish more people knew, is that reading is really enjoyable and more fun when you actually like what you're reading. So it's nice to kind of know what you're getting into, but all of these reviews will be spoiler free. And yeah, I'm just really excited to have some review videos up on my channel because I don't have very many so far. And I've read quite a few books, so might as well put some reviews up and see if you guys kind of are enjoying the same books as I am, or what you think of them, if you've read them or not. But yeah, this week we are going to be reviewing The Witch Collector by Charissa Weaks, and I'm just gonna get my handy dandy notebook out. I have some questions so I don't forget. And so I actually stayed focused on what I'm supposed to be talking about instead of jumping all over the place or rambling like I'm doing right now. So let's get into the book review. The Witch Collector by Charissa Weaks. To start off these videos, I basically kind of wanted to do green flags, red flags about the book. These are just things that I think are reasons to read something or not to read something. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad book. These are just kind of some initial opinions to tell you right away, and I want it to just be the first thing in the video so that you're not left wondering or waiting for an answer. If you're just looking for reasons to read it, here they are. Kind of like green light go, red light stop. So for this one in particular with The Witch Collector, so I'm going to say something that I think is important to note, but I'm not saying this is for or against reading it. It's just a really interesting aspect of this that I didn't know going into the book, that this was there, I guess you could say. The female main character is actually mute. So even though it's not American Sign Language or anything like that, she is using signing in order to communicate. She can't actually speak. So that part is interesting. It's something I wish they would kind of explain further as to why she is mute. They don't really ever go into that, although it is just a story and we don't always get to know these things. But yeah, that is something you should know going into this book. The female main character is mute, which I actually thought was a really interesting way to have a main character be, because I don't think you ever, I haven't heard of any books, if I'm being honest, that are fantasy where that's the main character. So I did think that was really interesting. Take that and interpret how you want to, and kind of go from there on if that's something you'd be interested in reading or not. But yeah, I thought that was super interesting, but that one's not for or against, so I just wanted to say that one from the beginning. Couple of green flags, couple of red flags. These could be reversed for you, so it kind of just depends. I would say is a really, really big green flag for me with this book is that the world building was beautiful. So well done in my opinion at first, and that's what hooked me in the sample, is that I literally felt like I was right there watching everything unfold. So I will say she does a very, very good job of that, and I really enjoyed that. The other thing that's a green flag is it's just a very unique magic system. I haven't read anything like it so far, so I was really enjoying that. I do wish they would explain or go into it more. It's they're trying to, but it almost makes it kind of confusing a little bit. However, it is unique, so that was interesting. These are some red flags that I would have liked to have known before going into reading the book, and that would be that the world is quite small to start off. I'm sure because this is a 5-book series that it will grow, but the world in this book is quite small, and there's not much great world building in the sense that you visually feel like you're there, but it's a small world. So something to keep in mind. The characters, I felt like there was no character development, and that they were all quite bland, and they could almost all be one and the same. The only character that was kind of different was you know who Reina is, which is the female main character. her character is quite obvious, but other than that, most of them could have just blended together. Like, it's hard to even remember some of their names now. The other thing, and this could be like a red flag or a green flag for you, I think it kind of just depends what you think of it, but for me this is a red flag. There is like insta love, like, and I don't even think I'm ruining anything because I should have paid more attention to the synopsis. I'll actually read that right now because it tells you that that's going to happen, but for some reason in my mind I'm like, nah. Okay, so every harvest moon, the witch collector rides into our valley and leads one of us to the home of the immortal Frost King to remain forever. Today is that day, collecting day. But he will not come for me. I, Raina Bloodgood, have lived in this village for 24 years, and for all that time he has passed me by. His mistake. Raina Bloodgood has one desire: kill the Frost King and the witch collector who stole her sister. On collecting day, she means to exact murderous revenge, but a more sinister threat sets fire to her world. Rising from the ashes is the collector Alexis Thibault. I'm saying that right. The man she vowed to slay, and the only person who can help her save her sister. Thrust into an age-old story of ice and fire and ancient gods, Raina must abandon vengeance and aid the witch collector, or let their empire and her sister fall into enemy hands. But the lines between good and evil blur, and Raina has more to lose than she imagined. What is she to do when the witch collector is no longer the villain who stole her sister, but the hero who's stealing her heart? Right there. I should have realized, like, obviously it's going to happen quickly, and it's going to be clear that there's going to be insta-love, that you already know they're supposed to be together just from the synopsis. Basically what the book is about, I did not really acknowledge that it was clear that her heart was going to be getting stolen by the man who she felt ruined her life, essentially. I don't like insta-love. I at the very least thought like it could have been done differently. There's things about it that make it very weird to me that this is insta-love and not something that like grew more slowly. So that's all I'll say. However, if you like insta-love and you're someone who reads synopsis and fully understands what they're getting themselves into based on that, you'll be fine. But yeah, like I said, green flags, beautiful picture painting, very good at showing you where you are in a book, and a very unique magic system, a unique female main character as well. And then you also have my like red flags where I feel like characters sort of meshed and they didn't have their own personalities, and then also the world is quite small. So those are reasons to that you'll either really enjoy the book or you maybe won't, maybe you don't care. Just letting you know these are the things that I picked up on right away that kind of bothered me or that I really enjoyed, and that is what the book is essentially about. As far as reading order goes, this is a series. It's supposed to be a 5-book series, technically 4 books, one's a novella. I think the third one is the novella, but yes, it's like a 5-book series essentially. The 4th is going to come out this year, and then there's no publication date for the 5th. Based on the first one, I think it could grow and it could become better. The ratings for the newer ones are better, but there are less of them. So like the readership dropped off, I guess you could say, in that aspect, based on Goodreads. Obviously, I'm not for certain about that. But yes, this is a 5-book series. So if you're looking for a like romantasy series to pick up and you really enjoy some of the things that I mentioned, this could be for you. I said I was going to read it in the winter. It was a really good fit, this first book, for winter seasonal reading. I did enjoy that as well. But now that you know what it's about, like I said, this is basically more of like, I don't know what you want to call it. These aren't going to be reviews, these are opinions. So yes, I'm reviewing the book, but at the same time, like I said, I'm not a literary critic, and these are very much opinions. I'm not going in and analyzing like grammar or like storytelling devices and things like that. That's not really something I'm interested in doing, and I'm also not that good at it. I haven't read enough to be able to do that. I'm also not an editor, but I do have opinions about books that I like sharing. I like hearing your opinions. I love how an opinion can actually alter, like in a good way or a bad way, how you see a book or a character, and I think it's fun to talk about these things. So with this book, I will say my experience overall with it is that it did drag a little long. It was slower paced, and I also felt like it was, I don't know, there were many moments where I just felt annoyed. There were a couple of really There was actually a couple of really funny moments. One in particular where you think you're about to enter a smut scene and the wildest shit happens. Like, I actually started laughing, which doesn't happen too often when I read a book, so that was enjoyable. But for the most part, like, I was engaged and it was interesting, but then there were other times where I'm like, how are I can see what's coming. How can the characters not see what's coming? It was just very odd how like immature and naive it felt. So there is that aspect to it. It's still a fun book. As you can tell, it's not one I would necessarily like full on recommend to someone else. It's not horrible, but it's not amazing either. And like I said, part of that is because I felt like the characters were quite bland. They could have been either or any of each other, and you wouldn't have really noticed a difference. And then also just the actual plot itself felt very predictable. Like, I don't need to be thrown like a curveball and not know what's coming. I think what bothered me was that the characters were acting out of like so much disbelief out of what was happening, and it's like they weren't thinking. I don't know, it was just very weird that like some of the things that happened to the characters were happening to them based on the information that they had. What I did like about reading it on my Kindle, though, I will say, is that it's one of those things where I can annotate, highlight, make notes all about the book. It doesn't take me out of the book, and I did have quite a few, but none of them were really favorite moments. They were just honestly me. I'll look at what I kind of was saying. I felt like it was me just having a conversation with the book, just being like annoyed. Okay, so this is an example of something I highlighted where I was like yes, you're literally saying it out loud, yet you're not clicking that something's wrong. She says, you saw him and he let you live. Like, I'm sorry, that's weird. And like, I don't know. There's just so many moments like that in the book where I felt confused. But honestly, I got to the point where I started like rooting for the Prince of the East, who is the villain. Prince of the Eastlanders, he's basically the villain. He had probably the most interesting characteristics. So I feel like rooting for villains, this could also be a book for you. Other than that, I personally found like the end technically was satisfying for what the book was, and knowing that it's a continued series. However, would I recommend the book? I don't know. I mean, yes and no. Like, it's not horrible, like I said, but it's not amazing either. It's not on the level of like how I would definitely recommend Throne of Glass to someone. Love that series. Yeah, I think this could be a really good book. It obviously is. If you look at the reviews, some people really, really enjoyed this book. So it's not to say that it is bad. Just based on what I've said, there were things that just weren't for me in this book. And so I'm just sharing those things in case those things are not for you either. However, there were very many unique aspects, especially like the magic and things that I wouldn't normally read, like insta-love, and also just honestly, like I said, very, very beautiful world that she creates where you do feel like you are immersed in it. Kind of just depends. I'll let you decide. I wouldn't personally go to my friend and recommend this book to read. And finally, yeah, so then there's also the things. I was able to take a few things from this book and put them on my book bucket list. I'll link that video and that concept in the notes or like description. But I found a couple things. One of them was that I wish I was, not that I wish, but I intend to be a little bit more reckless and take life less seriously, as Raina does in this book. And then I also wrote, so part of their magic is that they have swirls that are kind of all over their bodies, and I thought what would be really interesting is getting like a sleeve of temporary tattoos over the summer, or experiencing henna and that cultural experience as well. I think either of those could be really interesting and a way to bring the magic of this book into my real life. So there were aspects that are really interesting about this book. I just feel like maybe it is something where it needs to grow. Just wasn't captivating enough to pull me in. Like, for example, with ACOTAR, I would never say that the first book in that series is the best book. There's lots of things that I don't love about it, but I still really loved enough about it to keep reading. Whereas with this one, I just didn't experience that. So I think it is definitely like a user experience, and these are my opinions, so feel free to disagree with me. I'm more than happy to hear other people's points of view. If you have read this book, not bad, not great, but it was interesting and I am glad I read it because I can't remember where I saw it. Honestly, it was marked though in my library on Goodreads, so it is one of the books that was on my TBR. And now it's not, it's completed. So I am glad, and I am doing better about the DNFing. I think last year I would have thought that I needed to finish the series now, and I'm like, nope, on to the next book. So that's interesting. If I have time, maybe I'll revisit it, but as of right now, I am not really interested. But yeah, this is The Witch Collector by Charissa Weaks, and like I said, I'll leave it up to you whether or not you want to read it, but the biggest thing with these book reviews going forward is that I want to recommend books that I think are going to be really fun for you, that you're going to feel like you are immersed in this world with these characters, that you can take something away from it and bring it into your real life, making your day-to-day life even more fun, special, inspired, whatever you want it to be. I want the books I recommend to, in one way or another, enrich your life. And this book just didn't have enough of that for me to recommend it to other people. I'm not saying it's a horrible book or that you shouldn't read it. I'm just saying these are the reasons why I'm not recommending it. And I really, really want this to be a space where if I recommend something to you, I truly think you'll enjoy it and that I honestly just had the best time reading it, and I think you would too. I want it to be to the point where if it's like an 800-page book, it's not scary or daunting because it's going to basically be the time of your life reading it or there's just something there that makes it a very special or enjoyable read. So that's all I'll say about that. I'm not giving these reviews to like necessarily trash books or hype books up. I just really want to recommend books that I think will make your life better in some way or another. And this one just didn't have enough of that for me. So that's why I'm not fully recommending it. If you want to read it or you have read it and you loved it, I would love to hear your opinions though. So if you have any opinions about this that are different from mine, I'm always open to talking about them in the comments. Not a bad book, just not one that I am going to be recommending. I hope you guys have a great week. And if you're currently reading something amazing, also tell me about it in the comments.